Hi everyone, Thao here. So this is Apple's new entry-level iPad, and man, it's been getting a lot of hate. A lot of that comes from the fact that its starting price is now $450. That's $120 more than the 9th gen iPad, which was considered to be the best iPad for most people thanks to its balance of performance and value. To Apple's credit, they aren't discontinuing the 9th gen iPad. Not yet, at least. So if you're on a budget, that's still available. Let's talk about what's new. The $120 difference, however, gets you an updated design with flat edges that blends it in with the rest of the iPad lineup. The home button is now gone, with Touch ID being moved to the power button. It features a larger 10.9-inch liquid retina display versus the 10.2 on the old model, and the Lightning port is now replaced with USB-C. It's powered by the A14 Bionic, which is actually the same chip Apple used in the iPhone 12 lineup. The battery size is a little smaller, but Apple says you'll get the same battery life as the 9th gen. Unfortunately, it's still only compatible with the older first generation Apple Pencil, and that's what has a lot of people scratching their heads. Because the Apple Pencil has a Lightning connector and the iPad is now USB-C, to pair or charge this, you need a dongle. Yeah. It's as ridiculous as it looks. You're telling me this is the best they could do? Apple's gotta be doing this on purpose, right? To drum up some controversy and to get people talking about the products. But yeah, during my testing, I got fed up and said, forget the cap, and just left the dongle on the back of the pencil like this. I know, it looks awkward as heck, but it beats having to constantly plug and unplug it for charging. Look, the setup will totally get the job done, but my honest advice is if you're going to be taking a lot of notes, avoid the headaches and just opt for an iPad that supports the 2nd generation Apple Pencil instead. The magnetic mounting and wireless charging alone is probably worth it. I mean, this sort of magnetically attaches to the bottom, but it's definitely not made for that. On a brighter note, this is the only iPad right now that features a front-facing camera mounted in the landscape position. Even the new M2 iPad Pros still feature a portrait-mounted camera. I use my tablets exclusively in landscape, so this is a huge plus for the 10th gen iPad. With online meetings pretty much being the norm nowadays, this layout makes way more sense. It's a more flattering angle and makes me look way more engaged in the conversation since it looks like I'm actually looking at the person on the other end. If you use your tablet primarily in portrait mode for FaceTime or for recording vertical video, this is a change you'll likely not enjoy. Then there's this new Magic Keyboard Folio, which is exclusive to the 10th gen iPad. It's actually pretty good, but it's super expensive, like most of Apple's first-party accessories. It's essentially a clone of the keyboard book cover case that Samsung has been doing on their tablets for years now. It's a 2-piece design. The stand attaches to the back with very strong magnets, and the keyboard attaches to the bottom frame using the smart connectors. The trackpad is amazing. The typing experience is surprisingly good for how thin it is, and the extra row of function keys at the top for things like brightness, volume, media controls, do not disturb, and the app switcher are all so useful. For $250 though, my biggest complaints against it are the lack of backlit keys, and it essentially offers zero protection against drops. I'd also like more flexibility with the stand. Like, this is as far back as it will go. Compare that to the kickstand on my Galaxy Tab, which leans much further back and allows you to actually write or sketch on it. So is it worth it? For most people, a Bluetooth keyboard and a more protective case is probably the way to go. Someone who's willing to spend this kind of money on a keyboard is probably going to gravitate towards the more premium iPads in Apple's lineup. Overall, it's got a decent screen, decent speakers, solid build quality, a great selection of apps, and you gotta appreciate that a charging brick is still included in the box. Most people interested in this iPad are likely buying it for media consumption, light gaming, and for general day-to-day tasks. The 10th gen iPad will handle all of that and more with no problems. But here's the thing, the 9th gen is still perfectly capable too. Logically, the redesign alone might not be worth the price hike per se, but if I'm coming from a 4 or 5 year old iPad and I'm choosing between the 9th or 10th gen, I'd probably opt for the more modern design. The updated design is definitely gonna sway some buyers towards the 10th gen, especially when you know Apple's gonna have it looking all nice and shiny with the Magic Keyboard folio attached to it with perfect lighting in their stores. On the flip side, my mom is using the very first gen iPad Air from like 2013, and it's starting to really show its age. If that were to give out on her today, I'd replace it with the 9th gen iPad instead of the newer 10th gen. My mom wouldn't really care for the redesign, and the landscape camera would be worse for her since she literally uses her iPad in portrait mode like 24/7. She's also so used to the home button that the lack of one on the 10th gen would just get her really, really frustrated. But yeah, for a customer like my mom, that $120 difference just isn't worth it. I can't help but feel like the higher pricing here is very intentional. It upsells and makes the iPad Air feel like a better buy, and it also gives Apple some room for discounts. I can totally see Apple doing promotions for this during the holidays for like $399, and that's a much better price for it. At $399, I have no problems recommending it. $450 is a bit harder to swallow for someone who's replacing an aging iPad for themselves or a family member. As usual, thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, I'm out of here.